Because I'm from Miami, the entire crowd was against me when I visited last year. What in the world is happening, I thought. For example, where are these people from? Jessica Pagula, the current Dubai champion and a woman who has competed in front of raucous crowds on 4 continents, was unable to fall asleep when standing inside her hotel at the 2026 Dubai Championships. This was because the crowd outside was too loud for her to ignore, especially at night, when you can hear the stadium roaring, rather than because she was anxious or preparing for the game. You can hear it from the hotel, Pagula remarked. The crowd's noise is noticeable at night. It's incredible. The guy who the fans were rooting for did not advance to the championship game. There was more support for Alex Eala than for the tournament winner, despite the fact that she had already lost. While she is in California, former ATP professional Chris Eubanks is currently featured on live television at Indian Wells. Stadiums have been filled by her, and it's amazing how devoted her country is to her. Declaring in public that the tournament administrators have to relocate her to a bigger court before she is hurt. You will have something to talk about for years after the next 48 hours in Indian Wells. To remain inside this article, subscribe now. Indeed, Alex is amazing. To understand what is happening in California right now, you have to travel back exactly 14 months to January 2025. In the tennis world, 20-year-old Alex Eala, ranked 147th in the world, was unimportant. A wild card player from a country that has never produced a player in the top 100 in the WTA's 53-year existence. That was 14 months ago. On March 31, 2025, she entered the Miami Open as a wild card and went on to defeat 3 consecutive Grand Slam winners. Zelina Ostapenko won Roland Garros in 2016. Madison Keys is the current winner of the Australian Open. The second-ranked player in the world with 5 Grand Slam wins, Iga Swiatek, was her next opponent in the quarterfinals. For the last 3 years, this player has dominated women's tennis. The final score for Eala was 6-2, 7-5. The stadium did more than just applaud. There were Filipino flags in every row that was visible. The boom had made its way from Miami to Manila before Swiatek reached the locker room. A career did not materialize throughout the following 9 months. In Philippine sports history, it was an extraordinary string of firsts. The first Filipina to win 2 WTA Tour titles, the first Filipina in the WTA Top 100, and the first Filipina to win a main draw Grand Slam match was the Guadalajara, who won 125 in September. The first Filipina to get among the top 50. Every one of the 8 unique records represented a door that was unlocked in a single year after being locked for 53 years. In December 2025, Alex Eala appeared on the cover of Vogue Philippines during a cooperative photo shoot with Nike. The national flower of the Philippines was wrapped around her racket. A participant had turned into a symbol. A culture of tennis had emerged. Then came the time when everything became evident. In November 2025, Rafael Nadal, a 22-time Grand Slam champion, declared his retirement from playing tennis. After a year without wielding a racket in competition, a man went back to his own academy's practice court. He decided to go back to the sport he had dedicated his life to. He made the decision to train with Alex Eala. He remarked it was great to be back a year later. The man who founded the school that molded her. She spent 7 years perfecting her footwork on his courts. He went back to tennis for her. In a WTA 1000 event, she is the first Filipino to be seated. Ranked 32nd in the world and seated 31st going into Indian Wells 2026. Furthermore, even before she plays a single competitive point, the arena is already adjusting to her presence. Nevertheless, this recognition and accommodation were not freely offered. One terrible mistake at a time. It was necessary to draw the tennis establishment toward it. The trend started in January 2026 at the Australian Open. Nyla's first Grand Slam main draw match, a historic event for the entire nation, was scheduled to take place on Court 6. It can accommodate about 1,400 people. A venue intended for qualifying round games. No one was expected to visit the player-sized facility, according to the tournament. The stadium was filled with lines of Filipino fans. Hundreds of people were excluded. According to multiple reports, the massive throng outside Court 6 forced the Australian Open authorities to issue a public statement. Renowned tennis journalist Ben Rothenberg stated in his Bounce's newsletter that 20-year-old Alex Eala of the Philippines was declared the most popular tennis player at the moment by the crowds that waited in vain to see her on the absurdly small platform. The institution's response to the coronation was Court 6, then located in Dubai, in February 2026. Eala was first given disadvantageous scheduling periods by the WTA Tour during the Middle East swing. There was an obvious and instantaneous pushback, with the word finally carrying out the required editing work in that title. The Tennis Gazette asserts that the WTA Tour ultimately made the correct Alex Eala scheduling decision. Now it is March of 2026. On the Indian Wells grounds, Chris Eubanks is making a public statement on live television. In order to keep everyone safe on the property, hopefully we can get her into a large court. The word safe is not decorative. It acts as a warning. Chapter 3 of the same institutional failure is happening right now. The evidence of what Alex Eala has produced is not included in a spreadsheet. It can be found in the accounts of people who experienced it directly, but were unable to describe it. The number need to appear first. January 2025, ranked 147th worldwide. March 2026, ranked 32nd globally. 48 ranking places rose in 14 months. She went from being a wild card that nobody noticed in draw previews to being the subject of a live tennis channel segment from inside Indian Wells Stadium before her first match was even scheduled. At Miami 2025, imagine yourself in Jessica Pegula's position. She is in the top 5, competing in front of her home crowd, at home in her state, and in the semi-finals. The audience does not belong to her when she walks into the courtroom. I was playing against an American in Miami, but the stadium was full of Filipinos, Paula said. What on earth is going on? I was wondering, what was the origin of these individuals? Pegula won that match. She advanced to the final and is still talking about the crowd instead of the win. The army was not built in Indian Wales. It wasn't built in Dubai. It was fully developed when it finally arrived for the 110 million people who had been waiting. For future generations, this will be the case. The Australian Open 2026 confirmed what the Army already knew about itself. Eala's star power was symbolized by the line outside Court 6. A Reddit post featuring the overflowing queue was one of the most widely shared images on the tennis internet throughout the event. Ben Rothenberg, one of the most respected voices in the sport, did not call her a potential or a rising star. He called her the most popular tennis player. Present tense, full stop. Then the wait started. To put it plainly, is Eala now more attractive than Coco Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka? Was asked of the former world number 11 on February 24, 2026, Steve Johnson spoke on the Nothing Major podcast alongside John Isner and Sam Corey, 2 American ATP players with a combined century of professional tennis career. Yes, dude. It's absurd, Johnson retorted. He reached for the only contemporary analogy that made sense. Joe Alana was the teenage Brazilian who had sparked the men's circuit the year before. Johnson claims that she is having the same effect on every court that Fana did on the Miami men's team the previous season. In Australia, the court was exclusively a standing room. In Dubai, it was simply a standing area. It's huge. The institution has struggled to understand the commercial angle that Eisner highlighted. I think a lot of people miscalculated that market's magnitude. Finally, the women's side of the sport has a star. Winning a slam would be one of the greatest things in the world, according to the simplest of the 3 quarries. That conversation happened 9 days ago. She arrived in Indian Wells, where almost 2 million Filipino Americans reside in California alone. 2 days later, Paul Annacone helped Pete Sampras win 14 Grand Slam titles and Roger Federer win 6 more. Between those two, he holds the most Grand Slam coaching credits in the history of men's sports. He has seen firsthand what occurs when a player goes beyond a tennis result. He appeared live on the Tennis Channel in Indian Wells this week. He said, "She has a smile that lights up a room," when the subject of Alex Eala came up. That isn't a scout's report. The player's serve percentage and forehand velocity cannot be measured, according to this man who has watched 20 Grand Slam victories from the coaching box. The deeper authority stamp, however, belongs to Kim Clears. There is no nationalistic, cultural, or personal reason to embellish this narrative. 4 Grand Slam triumphs, a Belgian and previous world champion. Instead of using a tennis analogy, she looked for the most well-known player in American sports history when she saw what Alex Eala was carrying. In the Philippines, She had to deal with living like Michael Jordan. I think she needs to be somewhat protected from the chaos that goes along with all of that. A 20-year-old who was rated 32nd in the world was limited by four-time Grand Slam champion Jordan Michael Kim Clijsters. When she said that, she didn't employ exaggeration. When she mentioned it, she was warning about the pressure. Indian Wells draws over 450,000 visitors over the course of 2 weeks. It is the largest tennis facility, aside from the 4 Grand Slams. Stadium 1 can accommodate 16,000 people. In decades of organizing this event, the tournament management have never had to cope with a scheduling issue caused by a player who is too popular for the facilities. California has the biggest population of Filipino immigrants on American soil, with nearly 2 million Filipino Americans living within driving distance of the Indian Wells Tennis Garden. The same community has witnessed Eala'S ascent from number 147 to a sitting player. They now have a location close enough to visit in numbers commensurate with the noise they have been making from all over the world, from the qualifier bubble to the main draw of the sport's premier non-slam event. The scoreboard has not yet been updated with the story. She comes in at number 31. She's not in the final yet. She hasn't won a Grand Slam. However, players who have won Grand Slams are the ones that get asked about her during press conferences. On March 6th, Eala vs. In the round of 64, Diana Yastraka made her competitive debut. If she progresses, Coco Gauff, who defeated her 0-6-2-6 in Dubai 6 weeks ago, may play her again in the round of 32. Then in late March, she travels to Miami, the place where it all started in 2025, not as an unknown wild card but as a sitting player, defending the run that changed everything. The tennis establishment is still getting used to its new circumstances. She has been known for a long time to the viewers who found her at number 147 and followed every ranking update. The globe is reaching the same conclusion that you did at first. Eala participated in her maiden Major Slam main draw at the Australian Open, where she defeated Alicia Parks in 3 sets after winning the first set 6-0 on the tumultuous court. 6th. It should have been played on a stadium court. It was performed at a theater that quickly filled up to the point of overflow, making headlines. Here in Dubai, 3 weeks of fighting with love and pride have come to an end, Eala posted on Instagram after the loss. In a later piece, she also cited fellow Filipina athlete Sabrina Santamaria specifically. It's an honor to perform in front of people that relate to you. I wholeheartedly concur. She said, being able to do what you love with love is such a blessing. She disregarded the animosity. She discussed the privilege. That isn't denial. That is a 20-year-old who consciously chooses to hold it with open hands rather than tight fists because she is aware of what she is holding. 7 weeks later, she arrived in California and became the first Filipino in history to be seated at a WTA 1000 event. A disruption prevented Jessica Pagula from falling asleep. Ben Rothenberg called the court for the most famous tennis player an absurdly constrained stage. A man named Rafael Nadal went back to a practice facility after a full year of retirement, picked up a racket, and hit a player that his academy had created. A rating column that was at number 147 14 months ago is currently at number 32, and the trend is still continuing. It wasn't easy for Alex Eala to get into the WT Top 32. She ignited a diaspora, rewired a scheduling discourse, made a generational authority figure mention Michael Jordan, and created something inside a sport that did not have room for her until she made room for herself. The institution placed her to court 6. After the Army went to court 6, Chris Eubanks is seen on TV standing inside Tennis Paradise and begging Liv, the organizers, to provide her a court big enough to avoid injuries. The crucial Indian Wells 2026 match has not yet happened. But the right question is already being raised by the sport. Is there enough room for her belongings at this tournament? This is the question for everyone who is currently watching. Kindly fill out the form below. Will Alex Eala win in Indian Wells in 2026? Will it be the most unforgettable moment in Philippine sports history if she succeeds? The stakes compound will now be present in all of her competitions. With every battle, the Army gets louder. The organization mishandles. Indian Wells' new chapter begins on March 6th. As you are already aware, the entire arc has been developing at this point. The next 48 hours at Indian Wells will provide you with enough to talk about for years if you have been following this narrative since Miami 2025, number 147, the Swatek upset, and the Court 6 Calais. So stay inside this story by subscribing now. I'm depressed.